Hi all of you. Hope the previous video was interesting. It would have told you how the schemas develop in a child. Now this chunk of video is going to elaborate you on the stages and the characteristics of Piaget's cognitive development on the whole, and going to derive or explain to you about how the first stage, that is a sensory-motor stage, happens in a child. At the end of this video, you will be able to recognize the stages and characteristics of Piaget's stages of cognitive development, figure out the first stage of cognitive development that covers the early years. According to Piaget, individuals go through 4 stages of cognitive development as a result of the above mentioned cognitive process. The 4 stages are sensory-motor stage, which spans between 0 to 2 years. Pre-operational stage is the second stage, spanning from 2 to 7 years. The third stage is the concrete operational stage that starts at the 7th year and ends at the 11th year. The fourth final stage is formal operational stage, which goes beyond 11 years. Now on to the characteristics of Piaget stages. The first most important characteristic is that each stage is a structured whole. In other words, the stages are qualitative within the schemas and quantitative between schemas. The second characteristic is that each stage is a continuation of the previous stage. In other words, every stage prepares and leads the individual to the next stage, no going back. The third characteristic is that the stages follow an invariant sequence and none of these stages could be skipped. Then the next characteristic is that irrespective of other variables, the stages are universal, since it characterizes children everywhere in this world. The last important characteristic is that the cognitive changes progress gradually from one stage to the other. Now, onto the sensory motor stage, which is called the first cognitive stage of Piaget's development. This stage, as I already told you, extends for the first 2 years of life. Piaget assumed that toddlers explore the environment with their senses and motor skills. Hence, the first stage is termed as sensory motor stage. As I already told you, Piaget observed his children and found a drastic advance in their thinking skills every day in general and in their first 2 years in particular. Now let us see each and every substage in detail. First one is simple reflexes. It's a first stage and is found during the first month of life. Piaget considered reflexive behaviors as a building blocks of intelligence. After few days of birth, the infant is found to produce the same reflexive behavior in the absence of usual stimulus. For example, a newborn initially sucks nipple or bottle only when placed on its mouth directly. Later, the infant starts sucking when the stimulus is present nearby. Hence, it is understood that the infant has started to structure its experience. The second substage is primary circular reaction. Between 1 and 4 months of age, the infant's motor activities are centered on its own body. The activities that initially occurred by chance are reproduced repeatedly. For example, an infant sucks its thumb by chance initially. Later, he searches for the thumb and tries to even put a part of his hand into the mouth due to poor coordination. Also, the second substage is so crucial in establishing first habits. The similar reflexive response elicited even when completely separated from the reflexive stimulus is called as habits. For example, an infant towards the end of the stage 1 was able to suck at the sight of the bottle, but in stage 2, he shows a sucking response even when the bottle is not present. Then the third substage is secondary circular reaction. This stage develops between 4 and 8 months of age. In this stage, infants become more focused on the environment. Their motor activity involves environmental stimulus rather than self. Gradually, they begin to intentionally repeat an action and to trigger a response around them. For example, an infant picking up a toy purposefully and putting it in its mouth, or shaking a rattle again and again just to hear the sound. Though the infant of this stage repeats certain activities, the schemas are not intentional or it is not goal directed. Now comes the fourth substage, that is coordination of secondary circular reaction. The fourth substage extends from 8 to 12 months of age. Coordination of vision and manual actions occur. The actions become more intentional and goal-directed. For example, a baby crawling after his mother when she is putting on her slippers to step outside the house. Also during this substage, the infant starts developing imitation. Hence, their activities become intentional, deliberately changing schemas to fit an absorbed action. For example, a toddler stirring something with a spoon, watching his mother doing it. The fifth substage is tertiary circular reaction. Between 12 to 18 months of age, the infant will be able to intentionally explore new outcomes or variations as they become familiar with the properties of the object. For example, infant dropping an object from stairs, on walls, on air, etc., as it provokes various outcomes. Piaget also concluded that this stage sets a beginning to the creativity and novelty of any human being. Then the last substage of the sensory-motor stage is mental representation. It spans from 18 to 24 months of age. The infant possesses the ability to represent objects mentally by using primitive symbols. The use of these symbols help them to solve their problems suddenly without even trial and error behavior. For example, an infant playing with a toy car absorbs a car being stuck against a wall and suddenly lifts a car and turns it to a new direction. Three major capacities get developed. The first one is object permanence, the second one is deferred imitation, and the third one is make-believe play. Now, what is object permanence? It is an understanding that an object exists even when not present. Object permanence awareness gets initiated during the fourth stage of the sensory-motor stage. The sequence with which the awareness of object permanence occurs is shown to you now. First is A, not B, search error. An infant watches an object being moved from a place A to place B and continues to search for it in the same A place. In other words, the toddler is unable to possess the image of the object when hidden. Then the sequence is accurate A-B search. By 18 months, a toddler searches various possible locations to find a hidden object because it has got the object permanence in them. Then the second capacity is deferred imitation. During the sixth stage of the sensory-motor stage, the mental representation permits the ability to copy the behavior of others even when not present. For example, a toddler showing love on a doll by patting, feeding, or kissing it, just like a mother doing for the baby. The third capacity is make-believe play. An infant at the end of the sixth stage engages in make-believe play rather than functional play. Functional play refers to the pleasant motor activity of infants and toddlers either with or without objects. Make-believe play, otherwise called as pretend play, is where the toddler acts out everyday activities. For example, a toddler pretending to go to sleep. So to recapitulate, this video on the sensory-motor stage had given you an understanding about the sub-stages of sensory-motor stage, and also it taught you about the capacities that a child could develop within this particular stage. The next video is going to focus on the second stage of Piaget's cognitive development, what we call it as pre-operational stage. Thank you as of now.